Well, it looks like we've got everyone for today. So first of all, welcome to the 2016 Transforming Learning Conference. This is the second one that we've run since I've been here. Very good exchange of ideas, and I think that's the major thing that we're looking at right across the university, both with staff and students, and I'll talk about those in a moment. Without further ado, what I'd like to do is introduce Professor Andrew Gunstone, Director of Indigenous Strategy, to deliver the Acknowledgement of Country.
Thanks, Mike. Good morning. As Mike said, my name is Andrew Gunstone. I'm the inaugural Director of Indigenous Strategy and Professor of Indigenous Studies at Swinburne. I thank the symposium organisers for inviting me to deliver the Acknowledgement of Country. I would like to refer to the Acknowledgement of Country that is listed on Swinburne's Indigenous Matters homepage. We respectfully acknowledge the Wurundjeri people and their elders past and present, who are the traditional custodians of the land on which Swinburne's Australian campuses are located in Melbourne's east and outer east. We're honoured to recognise our connection to Wurundjeri country, history, culture and spirituality through these locations, and strive to ensure that we operate in a manner that respects the elders and ancestors of these lands. Swinburne also acknowledges traditional custodians of lands across Australia where we conduct business, their elders, ancestors, cultures and heritage. I think it's important on an occasion like this to explain what is a welcome to country and an acknowledgement of country. I recognise Reconciliation Australia for the following information. So what is a welcome to country? A welcome to country is a ceremony performed by Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander people to welcome visitors to their traditional land. It can take many forms depending on the particular culture of the traditional owners. It can include singing, dancing, smoking ceremonies, or a speech in traditional language or English. Protocols for welcoming visitors to country have been a part of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultures for thousands and thousands of years. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander groups had clear boundaries separating their country from that of other groups. Crossing into another group's country required a request for permission to enter, like a visa. And when that permission was granted, the hosting group would welcome the visitors, offering them safe passage. For example, in some areas, visitors would sit outside the boundary of another group's land and light a fire to signal their request to enter. A fire lit in response would indicate approval and welcome from the landowning group, and often, on meeting, gifts would be exchanged. While visitors were provided with a safe passage, they also had to respect the protocols and rules of the landowner group while on their country. Today, obviously much has changed, and these protocols have been adapted to contemporary circumstances. But the essential ingredients of welcoming visitors and offering safe passage and respecting when you're on someone else's land remain in place. So what's an acknowledgement of country? An acknowledgement of country is a way of showing awareness of and respect for the traditional Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander owners of the land on which a meeting or event is being held, and of recognising the continuing connection of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples to their country. An acknowledgement of country can be informal or formal and involves visitors acknowledging the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander owners of the land, as well as the long and continuing relationship between Indigenous peoples and their country. At a meeting, speech or formal occasion, the speaker can begin their proceedings by offering an acknowledgement of country. Unlike a welcome to country, it can be performed by a non-Indigenous person. So I'm non-Indigenous, so I'm performing the acknowledgement of country today. If it was a welcome to country, it'd have to be a Wurundjeri elder. So why are acknowledgements of country and welcomes to country important? In Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultures, the meaning of country is more than just ownership or connection to land, as Professor Mike Keppell from the Australian National University explains. When we talk about traditional country, we mean something beyond the dictionary definition of the word. For Aboriginal Australians, we might mean homeland or tribal or clan area, and we might mean more than just a place on the map. For us, country is a word for all the values, places, resources, stories, and cultural obligations associated with that area and its features. It describes the entirety of our ancestral domains. Incorporating welcome and acknowledgement protocols into official meetings and events recognises Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples as the first Australians and custodians of their land. It promotes an awareness of the past and ongoing connection to place of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders. Unlike New Zealand, Canada and the United States, Australia has no treaty with its Indigenous peoples. While land rights laws and native title determination in recent years have officially recognised that some Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander groups have some ownership rights to some areas, for many groups there remains no official recognition of their connection to the land of their ancestors. A welcome to or acknowledgement of country doesn't replace a treaty or land rights or native title, but they're a small gesture of recognition of the association with land and place of the first Australians. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander exclusion from Australia, our history books, our flag, anthem, and for many years our laws and democracy can never be undone, and the damage it has done cannot be reversed. What can be done alongside efforts in recognising Indigenous rights and addressing Indigenous socio-economic disadvantage in areas such as health and education and employment are practices of inclusion, including recognition of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in events, meetings and national symbols is one part of ending the exclusion that has been so damaging for so long. As Cape York leader Noel Pearson writes, reconciliation is not only possible but necessary. Settlement of recognition will include many things: land issues and connection to land, solutions to economic and social issues, language rights and many other things. There will be symbolism as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew, for the acknowledgement to country. What I'd like to do now is just set the stage just for 5 minutes with the conference. What are we trying to do here today and tomorrow? I think some of the things that we're looking at, I think, are really important for the future of our learning and teaching at Swinburne. A lot of the things I look at rely on this. This is the Horizon Report, and you can see some of the themes here that we're examining. We've got the rise of authentic assessment, redesigning learning spaces, and then the increasing use of blended learning design, which is in the centre column. And that's for the Australian sector, and this was just came out a couple of months ago. I think this is very telling because these are a lot of the themes that we're trying to look at Swinburne and push forward. And you'll hear a lot of these presentations today as well as you're going through. So these are the trends, if you like, in the sector. If you look at some of the challenges, looking at authentic learning opportunities, looking at under-resourced campus infrastructure, again, the spaces, whether they're physical or virtual, come into play there as well. But also to this last one here in the centre column, the balancing of the connected and disconnected or unconnected lives. And I think that's what we're doing, we're connecting, and I'm sure most people in the room here at the moment have at least one device with them, if not a couple, that they're going to be using. So these are some of the trends and challenges that we're actually working with in society, but in higher education, and a lot of the themes and the strategy for Swinburne itself that we're going to be pushing forward with. When we talk about blended learning, and Mark Brown's going to elaborate on this in a moment, and it's going to be a theme, I like to look at this in terms of what we're trying to achieve. We've got the formal on-campus teaching spaces. We've got the informal on-campus learning spaces. And then you've got the online learning and teaching spaces. We need all of those for learning and teaching. They're all important if we look at on-campus blended learning. And again, the strategy going forward. And Charlotte Brack has done some great work in looking at some blended learning standards in terms of what we're examining and what it is and defining it. So blended learning is at the centre of those because we're blending the physical and the virtual. And I think this is all about good teaching. And that's what it's about. There's no other agenda to it except for good teaching. Students need to know what it's like to study in an online environment for at least part of their work that they do. So hence the blended learning agenda. And we'll hear more about that in a moment from Mark Brown. Innovative teaching, I think, is what we're all about, working with the students, and I'll talk about that in a moment. The authentic assessment, the blended learning we've mentioned, the personalised learning, and the use of analytics are some of the key ones. And these are some of the themes that we're looking at throughout the next couple of days as we go through. If we look at the audience here at the moment, with the conference itself, we've got really good numbers, but I'm curious in terms of with the show of hands, the percentage, and I'll talk more about the students in a moment, but the PAVE staff, if you could put your hands up. Okay, great. Okay, good turnout. FBL staff. Okay, good. FSED staff. Okay, about the same there, which is great. FAD staff. Okay, excellent. And other guests. Okay, great. Okay, from other different parts of the university, which is great. So wonderful. Swinburne Online, a range of other aspects around the university and things. The student I've left to last because what we've tried to do this year is embrace the students coming into the conference a lot more. If you've looked at our website, there's actually specific areas there, and Anthony Osborne has got a testimonial on there about what he found last year. He was the lone student there last year, so hopefully we've got a few more this year in terms of things. So show of hands of students there. Okay, we've still got the 1, 2. Okay, so we've doubled, 100% change. But Anthony, hopefully we've got a few more there. What I give as a challenge to the students going to any of the sessions, ask questions. And for those who are presenting, see if you can actually answer some of the student questions if they come up. So you two guys are going to be very busy in the conference itself, but I'm sure there's others coming as well. But embracing that student perspective and that student voice is just essential as we're going through. So hopefully I've set the stage a bit. I think it's going to be a provocative conference. I think great discussions. The reason why we can't do this any other way, we need to collaborate and work with each other, communicate with each other, see best practice and exchange ideas. And that's what it's about. The follow-up is so important. So if you meet someone with a new idea, follow up after the conference is going to be one of the big things to look at.